Now we're going to run through the cathodic protection inspection, which if you're set up as a technician or a driver, this tile is going to be on your main dashboard here. So we'll go ahead and click into our inspection. We're going to enter in our account number that we're going to be inspecting. If it's existing, we'll select it from that drop down. We'll go ahead and click continue, select the location that we're servicing. And now it's going to ask us for our container serial number. So we'll go ahead and enter that in and go ahead and click continue. And now we're going to get into the actual inspection questions of the cathodic protection inspection. So in this first column, these are going to be all of the inspection questions about the actual container. And then this second column over here, these are going to be about the status of it. So we're going to go ahead and we'll say it's an ASME. We're going to say it's underground. We're going to go ahead and select our size as 100 water gallons, select our manufacturer as American. So now if you'll notice these four fields right here, these are all optional fields, which means if you have the information, you can enter it. That's great. If you don't, you're not going to be flagged by P3 for it. The one field the one optional field we do recommend that you try and answer as much as possible is going to be this owned by field where you say if it's customer or company owned. So we'll go ahead and say this one's company owned. And then Brent, do you mind talking through this other column here while I enter in the information?
Absolutely. So the underground container, if it needs to be anchored to some type of foundation per your AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, then you would document that was taken care of. If it's okay, obviously it's installed. If it's not visible because it's already been backfilled, then you wouldn't know. So you would select not visible. And if you detected something was wrong, then obviously you would have to select corrective action required. And then the location, what we're looking at here is that NFPA 58 code compliance standpoint. Do we have our setbacks from the structure or from property lines? And if not, you would select corrective action required. And then the condition, well, is it a takeover or is it a brand new container you're putting in? If it's a code compliant and in good shape, then you would say okay. If it's not visible because you can't see it, obviously you'd select that. And then same thing with corrective action if there was something that needed to be addressed. And then the relief valve condition, again, this is a visual inspection. Make sure you don't put yourself in harm's way. But if it passes your visual inspection and it has the protective cap, select OK. And then the relief valve date, if you can get the relief valve date off of it, which is etched in the side of the relief valve, then you would go ahead and implement that here, which is a simple format of month, month, year, year. So for example, for today's date, it would be 0423. And we do respect and appreciate here at P3 that sometimes those can be really hard to see. So if for some reason you can't see it or it was worn off, well, then you can select not visible. And as I mentioned a second ago, every relief valve has to be properly protected with a cap, whether it be a rubber or plastic cap over that. So make sure it's there. If it is, select OK. And then the fittings leak test is going to be one of the last things we do after we do our leak check. We're going to soap up all the attachments to the container itself, the welds, the riser, and make sure the service handle, etc., that nothing is leaking. And if it is good, then it is okay. It is code compliant. You can continue to the year manufactured, which is a different format here. You can see it's all Ys. So we would just put in the year, which of course is 2023 today.
So now we'll go ahead and click continue, and it's going to take us into the cathodic protection data. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and enter in our installation date. And then Brent, do you mind talking through these other drop downs?
Absolutely. So tank isolation would be if they have an underground metallic line and those anode bags are installed, we want them to cathodically protect the underground items. We do not want them to protect all the piping in the customer's basement. So that's where that isolation comes in. This can be accomplished with a number of items nowadays, whether it be a dielectric union, a pigtail, second stage regulator, a dielectric ball valve. Either way, if it is properly isolated, you would identify that and select yes or no. And if you knew how many anodes were there, the wires attached to the container, or you're installing them yourself, you would identify the number of anodes that were there. And then you would document the type of inspection. NFPA has been very specific. They have the initial inspection, which we have to accomplish, whether it's a takeover or a new install, from 0 to 6 months. And then the follow-up confirmation, which would be between 12 and 18 months. And then if that passes, we can then place it on a 36-month rotation or every 3 years. And if any of those fail, then the clock starts all over again per NFPA. So select whichever inspection you're performing. And then you would identify what the anode size was if known. Sometimes if it's a takeover, you might not know the pound bag they used. And then the anode type, well, what type of bag was used? And again, unknown, you might not know, but is it the H1 magnesium alloy or is it a zinc bag? Whatever the case may be, you would identify that and then move to the next section.
Awesome. So now we're going to enter in our tank to soil potential readings. And Brent, do you mind talking through the process of what you would have to do in order to get these readings?
Sure. So you can see from the diagram here at P3, we like to get 5 readings. 4 would be on every edge of the container. You can see reading 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then reading 5, we like to get one right on top of the container on the soil. That way there it comes in relationship with the steel of the container. So if we have a malfunction in the anode bags, we will still get that reading with the steel potential, which should be nothing less than a negative 0.50 for that tank to steel potential. But of course, NFPA says our anode bags, we have to get a proper reading, and it has to be nothing less than negative 0.85 or greater negative. So therefore, you can see our readings here of negative 0.87, negative 0.92, negative 1.3, negative 0.91, and negative 1.12. Those are all acceptable reads. So of course, that would pass this. If it is anything less than negative 0.85, then we would have to identify what the problem is and see if we can correct it. Maybe it just needs an anode bag retrofit. Maybe it needs just some dielectric separation installed, or maybe it's just time for that container to be removed and replaced with a brand new one. Whichever the case, you would identify that. We've also given you this comment section so you can tell us any special requirements that you are there that you need to address or that you may want to consider when you return. And then, of course, you'd go to the next section.
Perfect. So now that we've entered in everything we need to, we're going to go ahead and click Save and Continue. And it's going to tell us that our inspection was uploaded. So this is now gone from the P3 mobile site to the P3 desktop site where it'll be added to the account details and its correct reporting.